At the London Design Summit, I'm very pleased to be joined by Daniel Payne and also David Tordovan from Compsoft. We're talking about flight checklist. So let's start with you, David. What is flight checklist?
So aviation is a really fascinating environment where we're trying to get the most performance out of pilots. And as part of that, we expect them to remember a vast amount of information. Particularly when it comes to operating an aeroplane, we need to make sure that they're doing it in a particular way and in a safe manner. Flight checklist came about from a desire to try to find a way of formalising the process that pilots will go through to operate the aeroplanes, but in a way which was not intrusive and not distracting from the core job of flying the aeroplane safely. So my company, WingPro, works very closely with aviation clients in flight safety training and information management. Rolls-Royce is a key client of ours, and we work with the test pilot team who operate a wide range of aeroplanes, including World War II fighter, the Spitfire. The unique challenge with the Spitfire is that it's actually a very complex aeroplane, designed before the time of ergonomics, and therefore it has some particular operating challenges. And as the flying hours on the aeroplane are reasonably limited, the pilot's ability to gain familiarity and to do it every day and therefore have a repeatable process that they just know instinctively is more limited. So Rolls-Royce decided that what they'd like to explore are different ways of having a checklist in the cockpit, a way that we could start to formalise the processes involved in operating the aeroplane. And so we started working with Compsoft as the development agency to make that happen. Okay,
so tell me what this checklist therefore looks like. There's a lot of information here that the pilots need to remember. It's coming from WingPro. So what do you do to start to realise this goal?
Yeah, well, so what the first challenge was, well, we had to look at what the pilots are doing already, and so we worked closely with David and the pilots from Rolls-Royce as well to understand what they were doing in the cockpit and try to recreate something that didn't make that more complex, in fact made it easier, make it more efficient. And there are a bunch of other considerations too with the design of this particular app as well, because it's going to be in a cockpit of an aircraft that's flying, well, above the clouds, or the light is going to be varying. So we weren't able to approach it in our normal traditional way, where it's like, let's make it really awesome, graphically designed and beautiful. Kind of had to be very recognisable.
And easy, so really quick, they can just press a button.
Yeah, exactly.
Very simple.
And actually with touch, we love gesture and pinch and zoom, but actually if you're flying around in a bit of turbulence, that's not going to work so well. So we kind of had an approach, a chubby button approach, if you like, to make sure that the buttons were nice and big. They were always available. It predominantly runs on an iPad, but it works on an iPhone as well, and they can change the orientation, and the buttons retain their position. For example, next and previous buttons as you're flicking through the checklist is always in the same place for the pilot, so he doesn't have to be moving his hand around everywhere. And it was a really interesting challenge, and to come up with this very user-friendly tool that made things quicker, that didn't disrupt what they were already doing, but also kind of adapted to the challenges of the environment in which it was working.
And how much information are we talking about here in this one document or application, I suppose?
Oh, you would know how many checklists are in there better than I would.
Because you're talking about different types of aircraft too, aren't you?
It's reasonably unlimited in as much as it can work with any range of different aeroplanes, and we have aspirations for 2016. We'll see a commercial release of this app to the open market. And we see the use case of this all the way from very simple light airplanes all the way through to very complicated business jets or even fast jets, military airplanes. So the challenge is how to condense that information into a way which is easy to digest and is recognisable no matter which airplane you sit in, particularly when it comes to working with teams of test pilots who tend to switch between aircraft types quite regularly. How do we make sure that whichever airplane they're sat in, they can find the same type of information in the same place so they can easily reference and access that knowledge? So it's the other really fascinating part of this from a design perspective has been how do we manage emergency situations in airplanes? Traditionally, that's been very paper-based, using just a list of words, actions, line by line. Now we're going down a technology route. We've opened up a whole new world of looking at emergencies from. We can still replicate that line-by-line approach if that's the appropriate way of displaying the information at the time. But now we can use graphics, we can use images, we can be much more descriptive in what we're expecting people to do, which can help to cut through the fog of, I wouldn't say panic, but certainly that emergency state of mind.
So it gives a bit of clarity through that process as well. You're talking about testing the design. So how do you test it with the pilots themselves so that you know that this is working? What's that process?
We're hugely fortunate with the Rolls-Royce test pilot team as a client that we have that trials and testing expertise from them, and they've been able to feed back huge amounts of information for us to digest and tweak the design over time. So we've been hugely fortunate in that regard.
And from your perspective, working with these guys?
Yeah, it has been fascinating. It's been awesome, frankly. I mean, you don't get to do this sort of thing every day. We've got to go out to the airfields and kind of sit in the aircraft as well. So, who wouldn't want to build an app that gets used in the Spitfire? I mean, kind of that's every boy's dream, right?
And every girl's dream.
And every girl's dream. Sorry, yes, good point.
There you go. I love it. It sounds fantastic. Congratulations and thank you for your time, Daniel and David.
Thank you very much.